We're live. Good evening, Town of Litchfield. Welcome to the August 10th, 2023 meeting of the Energy Committee. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we're looking at business for tonight on the agenda. So we're going to do a roll call. Why don't we start over here?
Eric Olson.
Can you remember? Yep. I'm Kimberly Queenan. I'm, I guess, the Selectman's rep tonight. Not with us tonight is Steve Weber, is also another Board of Selectmen. And Elizabeth McDonald is not here. She's going to represent the school. And we have another public citizen, Sam Terrell. He's not here yet, but he's probably on his way. Yep.
Kim Kleiner, Town Administrator, Staff Representative.
Karen White, Finance Director, Staff Representative.
Great. Do you want me to do introductions with power at this point, or why don't I backtrack? I think for the election of the chair tonight, I would like to wait. We don't have a quorum anyway, so we couldn't do it, but I would like to wait till next time we have a meeting. Let me do the review of the charge set forth by the Board of Selectmen. I'll read it out to the public. So the mission statement of this Energy Commission: act as an advisor to the Board of Selectmen. It has 4 objectives. 1, to assess the current energy use by the town municipal activities based on current available information to be provided by the town staff, save Litchfield taxpayers money through wise and timely investment in efficient energy technologies and practices. Number 2 would be to evaluate energy conservation and air emission reduction practices recommended by the utilities and federal agencies, and in the use of other municipalities which may be potentially applicable to the town of Litchfield's operations. Number 3, to evaluate and recommend community power energy opportunities which might be further considered in detail by the town of Litchfield. And the 4th objective is to evaluate and recommend energy conservation, supply alternatives, and air emission reduction alternatives which might be considered by individual residents, and recommended actions the town might take to disseminate the information on such alternatives to residents. So at the end of it, we want to make and offer recommendations to other town boards and commissions on energy efficiency as well. So that is what we're supposed to be doing for this commission. I'm going to turn it over to you because I know we have a timeline with warrant articles if we're going to, go through this procedure, and maybe some introductions also with the power company here. So Kim, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Certainly. So we have a number of items that are set before us that are somewhat time sensitive. So the review of community power, if we were to look at recommending it to the Board of Selectmen, we would want to do so in time for a warrant article for March town meeting, which has a deadline. The Budget Committee would like those warrant articles by December 15th. Also, currently we are looking at CIP is meeting, and there has been a request to the Capital Improvement Committee for some trucks for the Highway Department. We've been given a grant opportunity that has an October 13th deadline to apply for the grant, which would give us a substantial state match towards the replacement of those trucks if we were to consider clean alternatives. So that's probably something that I would, it's going to go to the Board of Selectmen on Monday night, and we will ask them for permission to apply for the grant. If they grant us that, then we'd probably bring it to the Energy Committee's next meeting as an item for them to look over and see if they would recommend it as well. So that has a little bit of a quick turnaround. And then the third item at the moment is the switch from the fluorescent lighting within town hall to LED lighting, which we received one quote so far for. And this really came up because there's a number of lights that are out, as you can see in this room. And it doesn't make sense to replace those with the current fluorescent lighting without looking at the energy savings that we can get from LEDs. So that has a little bit of a longer lifespan, and it doesn't have to be done tomorrow. But we'd probably want to know before budget season is over if that was the route we are going. So those are really the three things that we've identified so far for the committee. And back in March, Ryan Polson came to the Board of Selectmen and presented on community power. It was something the Board of Selectmen were interested in at least reviewing and researching and discussing and bringing to the community. So tonight, Ryan is back with Bob Hayden from Standard Power, and they are going to give the committee an overview on what community power is.
Great.
I will turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
Ryan and I have been working on community power for 4 years. But first, thank you for having us in tonight, giving us some time to chat about all this. It's been a rather long process. The bills associated with community power have been in process since 2019, and the enabling bill that finally got the program off the ground was signed by Governor Sununu on August 26, 21, with a 30-day timeline to implement. 400 days later, it was ready. So it's been an arduous task, but Standard Power is traditionally a broker. So the town is one of our clients. They buy electricity from us. We provide them a secondary benefit from our local hydro plants that we administer. So that's been our traditional business, and we always have these growth projects like community power. We have bills in this year in the legislature that have been signed by the governor, so we're very psyched about this legislative session. So that's part of how we work, is to be involved in the evolution of the renewable energy world here in New Hampshire. And one of the early things we did, along with selling electricity, was we started aggregating renewable energy assets like hydropower plants and a few solars to provide benefits to schools and towns, and some CNIs, through the group net metering program. So that's another program that we continue to be involved in legislatively, and we're integral in its early introduction. So everybody we hire has to go talk at the Senate and the House on a regular basis. Frankly, they're tired of seeing me and Ryan, so we script our new young team members and give them a nice, round of things to say, and we still get our voice heard. Of course, now the young folks are scripting us and doing a great job, so it's really a pleasure to see that evolution. We can go on to another slide here. Standard Power is one of the first two entities to do community power here in New Hampshire, and we started out with another entity, Good Energy, to help us, because this has been a rather arduous task, and we wanted to make sure it was done right for all of our communities. So Good Energy is a company from New York primarily that has done community power in many of the states that are far ahead of us. So they have a whole bunch of towns in Massachusetts. They launched Rhode Island at the same time New Hampshire was launching. So they've kind of helped us less and less over time and focused on Rhode Island. But at the same time, we've been able to pick up everything necessary to implement these programs. So we still work in conjunction a little bit, but we're really driving that bus now. So as you know, and we've discussed, Keene, Wilton, Marlborough, and Swansea were our first towns launched, and they're now we're getting the data back from that launch about how many people made choices from the plan. So that's kind of interesting information. We have another group that's going into pricing soon. That's New Boston, Milford, and Jaffrey. And so, and then we have a bunch of other groups. Dairy's kind of maybe a group onto its own. Dairy will probably launch at the end of the year. And there may be other towns that join with them that have the distribution of other utilities. Dairy has all three utilities, and then the co-op all represented in their town folk. So I'm not sure if this is an all Eversource town or not. Do you have any Unitils or Liberties here? No? Oh, good.
Yeah.
The paperwork just goes from this big to this big when all the utilities are represented in one community or in one group of communities. So when it comes to community power, what it isn't is as important as what it is. So the bill for electricity still comes from the utility. The utility still does all the work on the meter, the poles, the transmission, the distribution. That does not change. As a matter of fact, that's what they're paid to do. So their revenue stream doesn't change at all if we do community power for many of the residents across the state. Matter of fact, they're kind of glad to get rid of that part of the business because they don't profit from it. And really, you know, we think sometimes that the utility works for us, but they're a for-profit company and they work for their shareholders. And so the parts that they profit on, they want to do a great job of, and they do. They do a great job of fixing the poles, the wires, and keeping the power on under extreme conditions. What changes is the supply cost. And the supply cost has varied wildly in the last few years. It's gone from 6.6 cents during the COVID time to 22 just a few, 6-8 months ago. And now it's down to like 12 and a half. So it's been varying wildly with national and international things. But that's what changes. That one line on the bill changes. So here, that one line that says supply would be Litchfield Community Power instead of Eversource. That's it. That's the only thing that changes on the bill, is that one line. And what we deliver with that is consistent pricing, lower pricing than the utility when we start guaranteed, but we expect over the life of any contract it is significantly lower than the utility. So that's what community power is in a very basic terms, but it is a lot more. So it gives your community opportunity to participate in some of the choices that the community makes through your committee and through the evolution of these plans. What we hope is that through community outreach, we get more people to participate in these things. Hello. So there are 4 statutory times when we reach out to the community on this information, and we'll get to that in a bit. But first off, why we're able to provide lower costs. The utilities are required to buy electricity in 2 3-day windows during the course of the year. They buy their power for 6 months at a time. So for each 6 weeks before that 6-month period, they have a 3-day window to buy electricity. And some days it's a good day. But statistically, it suggests if there's a full range of days, 1% of the time they get a good day. And they did on this last buy. So that's why they went from 20 to 12. And they know it. I mean, the chief counsel was talking to me the other day from Eversource, and she said, yeah, we don't expect to keep it in that range for very long. So that might be the future we endure for people who stay with the utility. So we're not constricted to that kind of market timing. We can buy anytime. We have towns that will be in pricing really soon, and we may purchase promptly, but we may leave them in pricing until we can get a great rate for them. Also, we can vary term. So right now the market is predicted by everybody we listen to be flat for the next 4 years. So that means longer terms might be appropriate. But really the pricing is what defines that, when to buy and how long to buy. Those decisions are made after we do all our work as a committee, and that decision is between the designated sign-or, the select board, and what the committee presents at that time. Standard Power and Good Energy in our first group of towns, and continue to do across most of the towns we talk to, has a green default. And what that means is that the product everybody gets if they do nothing has a little bit extra renewables. Well, it's 43% more. That's a little bit, because we have the lowest requirement of any state in the New England ISO for how much renewable power we have in our electricity. That's called the RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standard. That's 23.4% here. And we add for our green default 10% more. So it brings it up to 33.4, or a 43% increase. So that's one of the things we strongly believe in. But the reason we believe in it is that every town we work with, and this is not a statutory requirement, we do a survey of the community to determine what the community wants. And across the board, the statistical distribution of those answers remains pretty similar. 10% of people want the cheapest electricity they can buy, 10% want the 100% renewable, and then in the middle of the bell curve, there's people who want to pay a little bit less but be greener, and people who will pay a little bit more to be greener. So that's reflected in the programs we put out, and it's been consistent across the board, across all surveys, but we still continue to do them because every town we work with says, oh, we're different. Every town says that when we start. And we are continuing to prove that, for the most part, our New Hampshire residents are kind of the same, which is wonderful. The other things that a program like this enables is other programs in the community. So that's why a committee like this should be a living committee. The Community Power Committee might be part of a start, but the role the Energy Committee can play in a community speaks to a lot of things. Maybe one of the most important things is engagement of the community over time. The more people are engaged, the more we can do. And we look forward to those futures where we can talk about efficiency, where we can talk about, helping other people get solar programs, doing solar up programs around town where we're inviting a vendor to come in and do, 50 or 100 houses at once so that we get better prices. But in an individual plan, the optional products that we offer, where they're choices, are things that are represented in that initial survey. The town, the committee has the right to say, well, gee whiz, in that initial offering, we want to put some money aside into an optional fund or a community fund, not controlled by us, not voted on by us or some other town, what you get, but your own fund. So it would, again, be the Litchfield Community Power Fund, if you choose to do that right off. Another thing that's important in this part of the discussion is what green is. And I talked about the extra green being in RECs, or being 10% extra. Well, that's defined by an element called renewable energy certificates. So 25 years ago, the EPA split energy from the attribute called green and created the renewable energy certificate. So that element, that greenness, is traded as a separate element. It helps make renewable energy proliferate by circulating money through the system that the PUC can give out in programs in various states, including New Hampshire. Over the years, Standard Power has captured over $2 million in grants for renewable projects for both communities and C&I entities. And then we try to make sure that if there are existing local resources, we take full advantage of them. So, in town, on page 4 here, or the next slide, this gives the community control over a wide variety of things, and hopefully with large input from the community. It protects the consumers of the town from predatory mailings that come out as an opt-in program. Buy our electricity for 3 cents for 1 week, and then we'll raise the price to 25 cents. I got one of those the other day. It was a 3-month offer. and it allows us to plan into the future with real programs. That all takes education. We got some data here from some of the early surveys, and again, it shows that what communities want. You know, that bell curve I described is illustrated here in this data. But other things people want is they want local control. They want a steady rate. They want consumer protections. And they want local jobs. That's a hard one. That's a hard one, is to get a business that actually does efficiency or solar in the community because there's enough opportunity within the community. So that's a little hard, but people want it in the survey. When we launched, and let's see, where are we with this? Okay, when we launched, the default product, which is the one with the 10% extra renewable, was at 11.4 cents. The additional renewables to bring it up to 50% renewables, 12.05, and then 100% was 13.9. It still is, but relative to the utility, all of those numbers were well under the utility price. On August 1st, Eversource went down to 12.58. So our default product, our basic product with no extra renewables at 11.10, and our green 50% product is still below the utility. Our 100% plan is above them, but for the most part, when I talk to people who chose that, they say, well, we want green no matter what. We want 100%, it's okay to pay a little. And the survey says that's true. Now, over time, this is a sample of a good energy program in Massachusetts. It's next slide up. And it shows the utility rate changing every 6 months with the blue line, the top line, and the rates they've endured in Massachusetts, which were even higher than ours. The orange line is synonymous to what would be the basic, or no extra renewables. And the dotted green line is one with, at first, for the first few years, 5% extra, then 10% extra, starting in October of 2019, I believe, or December. And then the last bump, where both the utility went up dramatically and they went up following the market, is one where they went to 20% renewables. So this town, Somerville, I used to live really near there in Medford. It really is pronounced differently. Somerville kind of slurred together, as well as Medford, where I live, which is Meffa. So anyway, that's not that important, but anyway. So as you can see, there's a big spread, and even when during COVID, in the June and August timeframe of 2020, the price by the utility went down below their rate, and they really had very little migration during that time. So their contracts were like 24 months and 30 months, and there was no migration during that time because they've beaten the utility dramatically most of the time. Now that could happen here. You know, our rates, that time period, our rate was 6.6. Now we had some contracts out at that time that were 6.8. So they were 0.2 higher than the utility. Fortunately, most of the customers on that rate also enjoyed a half a cent back from the hydroelectric program, from the group net metering program, so they were net still below the utility. But that's traditional sales. Okay, so this is an opt-out program, and as you know, people do nothing. When they get a letter in the mail, they probably ignore most of that stuff they get in that box or that thing outside their house. And that's why this works, really, because if they do nothing, they get that green default plan. The town enjoys more renewable on a whole, and they get what's quite a bit lower price. So we're getting the data back from the 4 towns, and less than 10% of people make any choice. So we could be really conceited and believe that the survey and everything we did worked perfectly and everybody agrees with us. But we know that most people don't do anything. And that's why there's so few choices or made. Again, some people did, take the lowest cost, 3 or 4%. And some people went to, 50%, about 2.5%, and then another 3 or 4% went to the 100% plan. Those were the choices that were made. We would have been happy to see more choices in general, up or down, just to see that people participated. Because that's one of the most important things of the plan, is to get more people in the town engaged in this conversation. It's a dramatically important conversation for all of us going forward, but yet there's other things that are always more important. So anyway, people who already have third-party supply, so if they bought one of those plans off of the mailers, when this starts, they're not eligible because they're already being served by somebody else, so they're not eligible. They become eligible when that plan ends and they're no longer being served by whatever it is, E&H or Direct or whoever it was. So every month we do a sweep of the data to pick up the people who are newly eligible. And then we make them the same offer to join the plan. Literally, people can come and go on any meter read date. So if people found a way to arbitrage the system by buying from E&H for a few months and then coming back to us and playing arbitrage games, they can do it. It's a lot of work, but they're welcome to do it. I might do it. No, I have a whole bunch of solar, so this doesn't make sense for me, which is another important point. So people who have solar on their houses are participating in net metering for their home. Does anybody have solar on their house? No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So here's the deal in New Hampshire. There's a good net metering program. The utility acts kind of like a battery. If you make extra power in the summer, they'll give it back to you in the winter. That's a really good battery. So the net metering program is excellent. But people who are doing that are kind of early adopters for renewable thought processes, right? So it's really important, but really difficult for the utility to work with us on net metering. And the signal went out. So they don't provide enough data yet. They were charged through the law with providing enough data to support it, but they didn't.
May I ask one question before you move on to the
Yep.
topic? So you said people that are on existing plans, they will stay on them until they roll off those plans.
Yep.
Then you do a monthly sweep of the data and find out who's now available.
New eligible.
Do they automatically opt in if they don't
They
respond?
get a card.
What does that mean, a card?
Oh, they get a letter saying what their choices are, and yes, if they were unserved, they would automatically go onto the plan.
So if they didn't respond to you, they're
Just like it
opted
would
in?
be in the beginning.
Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
So anyway, what we chose to do is to give every single person on net metering individual service. We call everybody who's on net metering and reach out to them and ask them a starter question. Do you care most about the money, or do you care most about renewable energy? Based on that question, there's answers we can give them about how to net meter or what makes sense. And one of our competitors chose just not to let them be in the plan. We chose to work with them and hire extra people to work with them and share with them how they can participate or if it's in their best interest. And again, first we determine what's in their best interest. All the people who have other utility programs like electricity cost assistance, the price assistance, or who are using an efficiency program, all those things with the utility stay the same, so that's not lost. And probably for some communities, a real important one is slide 14, which shows that little write a plan, get approval. So we will work with the committee to the depth it needs help. So some committees want to do everything, and all we do is act as the statutory guardrail so that they do everything within the law. And then there's other towns who say, well, yeah, we want to get together for 15 minutes once a month and just move along. And in those cases, we pretty much do everything. And that's fine too. I mean, we want to help them get to the end point no matter what, which is providing them with language for their town meeting, with being there if they want us there for town meeting, if there's, you know, an open session before the votes. So we'll do what it takes to help each community individually get their program out. We like it when we have an engaged, deep committee. That's fun. But it's easier when they just say, all right, just do it. But we still enjoy doing every little bit we can with communities and help people discover what it is they can actually do for their community. So that timeline that we talked about, right now we are on a luxurious timeline. But once we do get a plan in place, we do a sample plan, we'll want to do 2 public sessions, maybe from this room. This is an ideal setting because we can have the public here and we can have them on an open Zoom line. And then right before we launch and before town meeting, we do 2 more sessions. So there's plenty of opportunity for people to hear about it, talk about it, and being as involved as they want to be. And hopefully we reach out and touch a lot of people. The statistics are not showing that to be true, though. I have to be honest. I keep trying to think of more ways to get more people involved. So we're playing around and experimenting with those solutions right now with towns that we're starting with. This is our cool team. We have had to staff up a lot, and it's great. We've been able to hire some wonderful people, and we're moving along well. So, questions?
I have a few.
Oh, good.
Mostly regarding net metering, but I'm also curious about the what exactly counts as green. For instance, does nuclear count?
Nuclear is carbon-free,
Okay.
and depending on whose definition you read, it may or may not be green.
Is that up to the city, or
It's more, unless the city creates an ordinance, and they could, it's more up to the state.
okay? So currently, does the state consider it to be included? If we were to, for example, do the same plan that Keene did, or that one of these other cities did that had the 10% green plan, would that include nuclear or not?
No, because it doesn't produce a REC. So a renewable
Okay.
energy certificate is the embodiment of the term green.
Okay.
So in New Hampshire, wind, solar, hydro, and some forms of biomass produce a renewable energy certificate.
Okay.
So it would be a conglomeration of those things that become the extra green. So right now, we're getting to the stage where we have the LMRs being sold and starting to happen. So a small small modular reactors. A utility in Utah has just put out an RFP for them. We got them going into the Tennessee Valley Association, and you know, I'll be going to a conference Monday that talks about them a lot, and there's an excellent future.
Those are very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we would be able to, you know, inform people who want to make the choice as to, because it's unclear to me if I was looking at this as a customer, well, does that green include nuclear or not? And, you know, regardless of
does
what your
not.
position is it possible for us to either make it include nuclear or to have nuclear as a separate item so that people could tell if it includes
So-
it or not?
In New Hampshire, nuclear is still part of the power stack. So 6 to 10% of the electricity received every day, each kilowatt hour, is from the nuclear power plant here. Now that's distributed really across the New England ISO. So the New England ISO has only like 2 or 3 inputs and 2 or 3 outputs. So for the most part, the generation across our states is somewhat homogeneous. And part of that is nuclear.
And that is relatively local as well.
It is relatively local
being
because it's
produced.
Seabrook.
Yeah, being produced in the state. So I think it would be interesting for people to know if that is included, and, I mean, ideally.
It is, they do.
yeah.
It's a great website.
Ideally, it would be nice for people to be able to choose whether or not they want it to
They
be
cannot.
part. There's no way that they could
There is no way
choose.
they can at this point.
Okay,
It is a fixed element. As long as the facility exists and bids into the forward capacity market,
okay. So they can
It's
choose
there.
from the green pool, the regular pool, and what percentage, and that's the
Let me
limit of what
expand a
we can
little bit.
offer to,
in general, in front of a committee like this, what people want, particularly on the committees who are more informed, is they want a project right there that's part of their community. They want the solar field right there. And they want the recs from that project to be part of the recs that define their extra greenness. So we're doing projects all over the state. We've got developers that we're working with to answer to that question about where's our project gonna be? Will it be in our town? Will it really be ours? Well, the answer is the statistical probability of you using the electrons will increase if it is in your transmission zone. But the embodiment of green, the renewable energy certificate, could be retired by your community for
Okay.
your project.
well, yeah, okay. That brings me into the next part, the local net metering. It looked like, from what I read on, I believe the Keene plan, their net metering documentation seemed to indicate that people on that plan would not be able to get a cash payout, people on NEM2. And it looks like, so if somebody local was producing on that plan extra energy, they would be losing the money that they would otherwise get for that.
That's why we counsel each individual individually, so that they can make the choice of what makes sense for them. So there's a wide range of possibilities based on the volume of generation. So if we start at NEM1, all the money goes into one little basket, and you continue to accrue the basket if you don't use over any time. So like every year, they give you a statement of how much is in your basket, and that goes up the same no matter whether you're on community power or not. NEM2, it's a different formula, and the formula is 100% of supply, 25% of distribution, and 100% of transmission. That's all that goes into the basket. The other costs don't. And if you're on third-party supply, the supply portion does not accrue. So that's the way the program works.
Is there any way that we can have a program where it allows local producers to contribute power on average to the grid and get something for that power?
So that's exactly why we counsel folks individually right now, because the utility doesn't support the data we need to have answers to that question well. So we tell them what the utilities support and what their choices are within the existing system. And we'll work with the utilities to encourage them to follow the letter of the law, which would allow enough data to flow back and forth, so that could be an option. Sorry for the
What-
obscure answer.
What kind of data are you looking for?
More than yes or no?
So his question is, they want money back if they're putting some money
Yeah.
in. And you're saying, but if the town votes, however the configuration is gonna be with this renewable, it doesn't matter, right? So if they're talking to 15
So-
families that may have solar farms or whatever on their property, they will have a different, maybe,
So-
potential
so there's-
selection.
There's net metering 1, net metering 2, and then there's size differences in programs from 100 kW and under to 100 kW and up.
Okay?
So there's a few different answers to those questions. But at this time, the utility is required to provide the data that would allow that to be an option, but have not provided it and do not have a contract in place to upgrade their systems to do that work.
I'm not sure I understand, because as I understand the current system, someone who is producing more than they are using will accrue credits, and those credits can be redeemed for money
Right, but
once a year.
we can't get the data. We can't get the
What
data.
do you, by data, do you mean how much power they added to the grid? So the power companies are not telling you how much energy these people added to the grid, so you can't pay them for it.
Well, that's the ultimate answer, yes. All they tell us is that they're net metering or not, so they're yes or no.
Okay.
We get one data point.
Okay.
And so, in this community, there could be 200 people who are net metering, right? Some number like that. And so, we reach out to them now, and based on the information we have, we counsel them on what makes sense for them individually. When the utility says, oh, there's a 200 kilowatt hours in excess in August, then we could take action in the way you're suggesting.
Okay.
But right now, all we're doing is working with the utility to get it done, and the PUC to force them to get it done.
Okay.
So they could opt out.
That's one of the choices.
That's their choice, right, is to opt out.
Yeah, that's why we counsel them.
Would it be possible, both for individual residential or commercial installations, but also if the city were to have a net positive solar installation or something like that, would it be possible for that data to be collected and handed to you by a third party, such as the company that installs and monitors the system?
Great question. So we do that. That's part of what we do already. We have, we administer 35 larger net metering facilities. And we provide the benefit associated with that to many schools and towns as is. So yes, that can be done. But to do it in a granular nature like individual households becomes a little cumbersome on a monthly basis. So we need the data, the actual invoice, the utility invoice every month from these net metering assets to administer the plan. So we administer 45 million kilowatt hours of net metering assets.
Is there legal recourse? Is anybody suing to get this data? That they've
There
said legally you have to
is
get?
suit in play. There is, I believe there's a suit in play, but the utilities have asked for financial recourse to do the work, which they have every right to ask.
It's their data, yeah.
So if a company like the one that's installing my solar has all that data for myself and every other installation, because I will have it, it'll be, real time on my devices. I'll be able to see how much I'm using, exporting,
Me too.
accumulating, whatnot. Could we, if we were to have those utilities agree to send you that data, would it be possible for us to allow net metering payments for the customers that have those services?
It would be possible,
Okay.
but I'm not sure, if you look at a community group, would they want to socialize the cost of doing that? So there's some elements of having automated data versus data collection of essentially unavailable online data. So you'd eventually have to socialize the cost,
What would be the cost?
collecting data.
Well, if it's all given to you by a handful of companies that do all the monitoring, though, then you have all the numbers for each
But
account.
it takes human beings to do some of the calculations in the end. It takes time. We administer a lot of net metering programs already, and every quarter, we're pouring in a lot of time to get the numbers you're talking about into a system, to calculate the benefits and provide those benefits back to the off-takers. So we know from experience that without automatic data, and they're supposed to have a data desk where all this stuff is automatic, then we can turn everything into a system that's virtually automatic. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I look forward to your participation in legislative action against this, because we could use more people coming up and talking to the legislature.
Who is currently supposed to be providing this data automation?
There's no contract for it at this time.
Is it somebody that's supposed to be contracted through the state or
No, it would be a utility contractor,
a utility contractor?
and the PUC needs to force the action.
Okay.
So that's why I said it would be great to have more people who would come to legislative sessions to actually enable this stuff to happen.
Okay.
That's why we bring, all of our team members to these legislative sessions to get this action done that's actually in law. It's RSA 53AE, it's there.
It's interesting. I would assume that we'd also need that data to change anything about the current setup that limits people from selling from battery storage.
Yeah, you're right on the right path there.
So,
So the battery storage docket is 23060. It's an active storage, an active docket right now. I think there's a meeting on that. You can call me on this. I don't know it off the top of my head, I'm
okay,
sorry.
I'd be interested in that.
So I'm an intervener on that too. So I'm an
Okay.
intervener on the net metering program, I'm an intervener on the battery storage project. And so, this is stuff that I'm in the middle of well, not every day, but a lot. And I care a lot about the questions you're asking because they apply to me too.
Yeah, I'd really love to be able to see a system where we could have people who are overproducing in the city selling that power to other people in the same city.
So, that's a great future, and Monday I'll be at a conference that addresses that on a national level at NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and there'll be some of the people who are really activists on a national level on those exact subjects, including grid mod, which is as important as any of this stuff. But yeah, we deactivated our time of use docket. That's not happening right now. The data desk is still a expectation at some point where this data is available as it exists, and the improvement of the system is really a process that, under the right political circumstances, could be reaccelerated to where it was 10 years ago.
Okay.
We've had a legislative system that has slowed everything down on those particular subjects that you're discussing.
Mhm.
So that's why participation in the legislative process in this state is incredibly important, and individuals do get a voice here. It's not like Massachusetts or, Pennsylvania, where it's only, paid people who talk in the legislature. We as individuals can talk to these subjects and make a difference.
Okay. My other questions pretty much are pretty much answered by that, or at least until something is resolved on that. I guess the only other thing I would be interested in is what the actual contract looks like as far as the city's concerned. It seems very flexible from the perspective of the consumer. But I'm
So we have a couple contracts.
okay.
We start with an MOU, which is a one-page document that says we'll work with you and get all this stuff done. The contract where we buy electricity on your behalf is a little more robust and could literally change from supplier to supplier that we might work with when we go to an RFP process to buy your power. But the first contract is a paper handshake, one page. I think do you have one of those with you, or do you?
Yes.
They're here? Yeah, so that's how we start.
Okay.
It's one page. You can pass it around.
And when do you bring in the public sessions? Obviously, after all this is signed, but when does that, is that happening?
The public
Surveys
sessions,
or-
the first two public sessions are after we do a draft of the actual plan that would be your individual plan. And we, publicize it and have two open sessions.
If we were on the timeline of getting the warrant article ready for December, I would imagine having both public sessions in probably November.
Yeah, October, November, yeah. That kind of timeline.
Then
And
you s-
have you found that there's any difference, in communities? Like, I don't know if, and I feel like I should know, but I don't. Has there been a lot of talk, in Litchfield on what community power is? So, are the residents already somewhat educated? And I don't know that answer.
No, when we do the first two public sessions, it's clearly a low-level conversation, and it stays pretty low. Because the nuts and bolts are really important, and that's where those first two sessions clearly are when we're talking about the plan. We're relating the plan, but it's really at a very basic level. And when we do other public sessions, or when we do, like, we did a thing in Keene where we did a opt-up day at Earth Day, where we had a table encouraging people to opt up while they had the letter in their house. And so it was all really basic stuff for 4 out of 5 people, and then 1 out of 5 people was well-informed.
So Keene had a plan as a community, with certain metrics that they wanted to meet on becoming green.
Oh yeah, they have a town ordinance to be 100% renewable by 2030.
We haven't set anything within Litchfield as to any type of metrics, and I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, because we don't know if the desire is there or not.
And that's why we like to do the survey, to get that one snapshot of the answer to that question in every town. So we believe strongly in that piece, even though the response is marginal. Having some answer to the question is good. Keene is definitely a little unique in that aspect, in that they have some very significant goals, but they also have some significant restraints in how much space they really have. So we're looking at a large solar project there, but it's in 30-year-old forest. So it's a real conundrum about, is it right to cut down 400 acres to do solar of trees that are all at their maximum carbon absorption right now at 30 years old? Real tough choices.
I think it would be interesting to really find out, because one of the things about Litchfield that has kept Litchfield so beautiful is this kind of mindset of conservation and natural resources, maintaining our natural resources. So I think we really need to do our due diligence to find out what how the residents feel about this.
Yeah. Oh, we agree. That's why we continue to do that.
Are you thinking leveraging their survey or come up with our own?
I think maybe we could leverage some of their survey and come up with pieces, because what do our residents want us to set as goals? Even when I was looking at the grant for the vehicles, for the highway vehicles, I don't know, is this a direction that the community wants us to go in cutting down on our diesel and our emissions? I mean, I naturally think yes, but I might be totally wrong.
Right. I mean, I naturally think yes, too.
Now, why did Leidenborough go through this whole process in 6 days? Why was that a complete, obviously I can see why it's different with Keene, but why was that expedited? Would you say Leidenborough was 6 days, or Marlborough?
Jaffrey was 6 weeks.
Jaffrey? So
6 weeks.
That was the shortest one that you've done, 6 weeks?
From start to finish, yeah, 6 weeks was very quick.
So why did they go so quickly?
Because they wanted to get it in for town meeting.
That was
They
their,
wanted to help people reduce their electricity costs.
okay. Are they-
Wilton was fast too. They, January of 21 was our first meeting, and got them to town meeting in March. So we also met with them once a week. I
Both
believe.
towns, once a week.
So again, if the committee is that motivated, we're happy to follow that path.
Yeah.
Not everyone is, but,
And their town adopted it? The town voted for it?
Oh, yeah.
Wilton did?
yeah,
We're,
Wilton's in contract
we're,
with
we're
that
at,
first group.
on town votes,
Yeah.
we're well over 85% across
Okay.
the board.
They're in NRPC, Wilton, so we can ask them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. How big is their town? It's kind of equivalent. They're a little further west, but obviously.
They're like three.
Oh, they're much smaller.
3,500.
I was gonna say they're smaller
8,500
than
then.
us, yeah.
Okay.
That's where I grew up, so.
Okay.
But Milford, you know, that's a little
How's
bigger.
Milford? How did they do? You said they were in a wave, right? Which wave are they going?
They approved their plan in March.
They did.
And they were like 85%.
So if it does get approved at town meeting, how long does it take to implement?
Good question. So the first group took a while, really. It was, they were all approved, you know, in the March timeframe, and we launched in, essentially a year later. No, excuse me, 4 months later.
Why does it take 4 months?
Pricing, notifications.
Yeah.
So you have to,
PUC review.
But it is
Yeah.
similar to.
it's part of it, but, so what you have to get a price that you can put on a letter, then you have to mail the letter, give people a month with the letter, and let them mail it back for 6 days.
Okay, so I thought we were gonna go to warrant article with a potential price already and say, you know, whatever. Okay, got it. This is just the process to be approved for you to get the price before they can opt in.
Yeah.
All right,
So a good question just came up.
thank you.
Karen thought of a great one, and I want to make sure we got it right. So right now, we work with the NRPC aggregate.
Yep.
What's the difference between community power and a process like that where there's a aggregate contract?
So there are still individual contracts under the the new National Regional
NRPC.
Plan, yeah, it's
Yeah.
NRPC. There's still individual contracts that are signed by the town as an entity. So we buy them in a group, which gives us buying power. Same thing with community power. We wanna buy power in at least 100 million kilowatt hour chunks. So that's why we might have a handful of towns in a group, to buy at the same time. So we want 100 million, because after that, the cost reduction for additional kilowatt hours is virtually insignificant, but there's a rather predictable plane from, you know, like 2 million to 100 million. So it's much more attractive to the suppliers at 100 million, and they price well.
But it's essentially a similar process where you're grouping entities together. In the NRPC case, it's the municipality, the town buildings, what have you.
School districts.
School districts versus community power, which is residents, small businesses. So the scale is much bigger of community power. You're going to have a greater kilowatt hour load compared to the group that we priced and contracted earlier this year. But the process is similar in that you're grouping together.
So would we be grouped together with other towns?
Probably.
You could be.
It would be best.
Yes.
That would get you the best price. You're not big enough to demand the best market price there is out there.
Right.
So,
So I guess how would we know that if you are going?
We know
group? You know that.
So you're probably in the 20 to 30 million kilowatt hour range for your town load, the
Yeah.
residential load. That's a fair estimate. That's similar to what Swansea is, and what Swansea and Plastow are very similar size population wise. So it could vary depending on household numbers, but you're probably in that 20 to 30 million range, whereas Keene was 70, 80 million, and Derry's close to 100 million. So So yes, grouping similar to the NRPC group, grouping you with another couple communities and their 20 to 30 million kilowatt hours, and you quickly build that buying power.
But I think we're really at a dozen towns now on your timeline.
And
So
how,
I have a question too.
no,
Yeah.
how often does the price change?
Every minute. You know,
So-
like in general on the marketplace?
Well, yeah, like on my bill.
No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. On your utility
Y-
bill,
yeah,
it
yeah,
changes
yeah,
every
yeah.
6 months.
Okay, that's what I thought you
We tend to buy contracts that are somewhere between 20 and 30 months long. That's normally what we do. The NRPC contract is 2 years, 24 months, which is pretty normal for us, because that gives us a long enough period of time to amortize the risk premium that the utilities endure when they buy for short contracts of 6 months. So over time, the probability of a risk occurring diminishes relative to the total time, so it costs less.
I have a question too. What if we went with it, or the town decided to go with it, the residents, and we wanted out of it at some point? We just wanted to break free. How would that happen?
You'd encourage the individuals to drop.
So we have to have everybody drop.
Yeah,
Once
the
we're in, we're in. There's no blanket we want out.
Well, no, there is no blanket, we are out. But if it were inappropriate for the residents of a community, we would surely help you encourage people to leave.
Just want to make sure an exit strategy, that's all.
They do, yeah. Every individual resident has the freedom to come and go as they please throughout. So let's say the town signs a 24-month contract. That contract is set, but the residents again can come and go if they want, with no penalty for coming or going. You can opt up if you sign up for the cheapest rate, and then 5 months down the road you want to go up to the next rate. You can do that. If you start at 100% green and too much, then you can opt down in the plan. So there's a lot of flexibility for the residents, and it's kind of supposed to be made that way to make it as easy for people. They're not stuck. But that initial that contract with the town still would exist for the duration.
But then it would end at the term of that contract unless it was
Right.
renewed.
Yeah. And the goal would be to, once that initial contract launches, we don't just stop. Like we're continuing to work with you, the town, to provide data to the residents on this is how our program's doing. We typically will want to start looking at renewal pricing well in advance, probably at least 12 months in advance. If the town says, no, we don't want to do it after that contract, that's fine. But we don't want to wait until last minute or a month or two before the contract ends to start looking. So we're kind of always monitoring what's going on, and should there be a 12 months into the 24-month contract and there's a massive dip in the market, it might make sense to look at a future contract at that point. But and we would make a recommendation, but it's ultimately your decision on what you want to do. So.
The residents do that now, right? They have Eversource, and they go to these third-party,
Yep.
right? So they're doing it now.
Some to some.
So we're just doing a reset from Eversource to you,
Yep.
if they want that, and then they can,
Yeah, and it's like
They
8 or
want-
10% are probably participating in other third-party supply contracts. That's about what we see.
do you ever update the public with how you're doing on a bill? Like, we just said about renewable energy, right? You might come up with another strategy in 2 years, with a different configuration. Are you ever gonna update them what it is?
Yeah, we would be happy to do that. We haven't gotten to that point yet in time.
I'm just saying,
This
they would
is
wanna
new.
know, right?
So I mean, if your committee was still active and organized community outreach programs every quarter, we would be happy to work with you on that. That would be great.
Yeah, you want them to make informed decisions, right?
Yeah. I'd like to go back to NEM 2 again. So we were talking about, coming and going in the plan on meter read months. So if somebody had a NEM2 plan at 60% generation of their load, something like that, then being on the NEM2 for the summer might be great, and that they might wanna go on the community power plan for 4 months a year, because everything they made in solar, they'd use behind the meter, and it wouldn't go off to the grid. So that would be an ideal situation under current law.
Well, that's an interesting strategy.
Yeah, that just fits in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting personally, because the way it is now, I would just be, with my setup, I'd just be losing a ton of money if I joined this.
Yeah.
Which,
What percentage of your load will you have generation for?
about 300.
Oh, 300%?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you want to make money.
I'm an exception, but I
Oh,
believe,
you're in it to make
well,
money.
no, I'm not in it
This
to
is-
make money. I'm in it to have all the power I could need in the event that I'm disconnected from the grid. So that I can still run everything I want to run without relying on a generator or fuel or anything.
In January?
Yeah.
You gotta go shovel those panels then.
Well,
Believe me, I think those thoughts too. I care about the exact same thing.
and my setup is not maybe my setup is not ideally cost effective and isn't probably something most people would do
Yeah,
for
so-
their setups. But I do think that there will be a lot more people like me in the future, because we're riding declining cost curves on particularly batteries, but also a bit on solar. So in the future, it could be very worthwhile for people to install 200-300% capacity on their homes and sell it back to the grid. And I feel like if we're especially if we're trying to encourage local and green energy, we want those people in the plan. If we make a plan where those people lose money if they're a part of it, we're not encouraging
But
people to install those
There's a
kind
flaw.
of things.
There's a flaw in that statement.
Okay.
The flaw is that the utility will always pay probably always pay more for your excess energy than a plan would want to.
So we can never have a plan that would encourage local green power generation.
Oh, no, it does. The utility does it.
The utility does it.
But would you want to socialize an excess benefit for the small percentage of people who have a 300% generator? Would you want other people to subsidize that higher value than the utility?
Why is the utility able to pay a better price and not the plan?
Because they're required to pay right now the default service rate, and we're probably always gonna be under the utility default service rate.
Okay.
So that difference was almost 9 cents to start with. So if someone's getting 20 cents a kilowatt hour for their excess generation, they should take the 20 if they care about the money.
Yeah.
That's just the law right now, so, hopefully the law
So
allows us
it's
to not be
it's
flawed.
the price. You're saying that the price is by law being suppressed for.
I didn't say that. I said that what the price was. The market drives the price. And natural gas prices are the primary driver. So when we had the Putin event in Europe, natural gas prices went from $2 or $3 up to $9.50. That drove the electricity market up to the 20-cent mark we endured for that year. Across all of, New England, as we have the New England ISO rates. And even other parts of the country, it went up, doubled, but some places doubling it is still a great deal. Like the South. So anyway, there's a great conversation to all of this. I mean, your points are pretty cool, and, the market isn't your buddy right now, but I hope it is in the future.
There's numerous problems with how it's set up right now, but
Yeah.
I'm a bit unclear. I'm gonna have to look into how this works how the state has this set up,
Yeah.
because it doesn't seem like it's incentivized properly.
We need more people that talk like that, okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
All right.
please, call me.
I will give you a call.
Yeah, now, this legislative session is essentially done.
Okay.
And we get going again in November on the next writing bills and finding, legislators who will sponsor the bills that help move to a future where some of those questions are better answered.
Okay.
I'm curious on how easy is it to opt out or opt up or down? You know, is it just a phone call, you'll get a person, or is it press this button?
A phone call, a website, or an email.
Okay, that's,
And the hook is that the changes occur on the next meter read date. And there could be scenarios where there's only 3 days to that, and the utility doesn't get it done, because they're part of the process. So we tell people that if they're 10 days ahead, it'll happen on the next meter read date. But that's the arbiter.
okay.
Any more questions?
Just gonna open up to the public, see if there was any questions. We don't have
I
any
bored
tonight.
everybody, sorry.
Nobody's dialing in. That looks like the signal's lost there.
Yeah.
I do not have any questions, so we'll have to have our members who weren't here tonight watch the video
Yeah.
and read this.
Or call too.
This meeting.
We'll take calls.
And I think at the next meeting, we'll, do all the business of the chair and
Right.
all that,
Yep.
and, but we don't, I'll just mention this, we don't have the next meeting on the calendar at the moment, so that was part of the
Right,
work tonight,
right.
which is,
That's good, because I was loading my calendar and I noticed there was just one for this meeting, and I said it was gonna repeat. So you just answered my question, all right.
yep.
I can
We
check
need,
that off my list. Okay.
And with being starting
But we
budget,
have a
meeting
timeline here.
dates are at a premium right now.
Oh, and regarding budget, there's no charge on any of these services.
I'm gonna disconnect so that I can
Oh, that's
see.
good. They have two
calendars.
meetings before. You have two meetings post, right? Right before warrant articles. You have 4 meetings you want to get in
Yeah,
as well, and the survey. So,
and usually we do the
timeline here.
Yeah.
pairs on the same day.
Okay,
So we do a lunchtime meeting
yeah.
Yeah,
and then an early evening meeting.
So at a next meeting or a future meeting, we will come with, or we can come with a full timeline and schedule for, these are the things you need to meet. These are the projected meeting dates. These are the things you need to meet for each meeting. Should we want to go for next year's town vote or town meeting?
So at the end of the day, this warrant article is whether we want to do a reset from Eversource to them. And then people can opt out if they want, or try it. That's what we're doing. It's not trying to say, you're gonna save 12 cents per whatever, we're not going in with that. We're just
No,
saying,
it's do you want
offering you a
to
service.
approve a plan that's intended to save money and give you more green options? It's as simple as that.
and if they opt out right away, they never get changed over, or they have to get changed, they get changed over, then they make
Well,
a
they-
phone call or cut to the
They
website.
can opt out or opt in at any time.
Okay.
So they might make many choices.
But there is so when we do send out the postcard and the mailer at post town meeting,
Yeah,
there will be an option on there to opt out
okay,
right at the start.
So-
But if they do nothing, then they get enrolled.
gotcha.
But then they can go and opt out afterwards if they want to.
So you're offering, so I had a misunderstanding of what this was. I thought it was, here's what we think the rate will be, here's what we pay today. So you're just offering them a service to change it or opt out before it even gets turned on if the,
And we wouldn't
the
launch
voters said
unless it
they
saved
wanted
them money. We wouldn't launch a plan unless they saved money.
is there a percentage of the town that has to opt in?
No,
No, okay.
no, I mean, in the event that there was a high percentage of opt-outs, there's no significance. But again, we see it to be 3% so far. And by the time you get to that point, we'll have more substantive data on that. But that's the data for the first 4 towns.
We'd expect probably between 85 and 95, or 85 and 90% participation, roughly.
Well, if you include people who are already on some other plan, yes, but, you know, participation of those that are eligible is 97%.
Most people probably just look at the electric bill and just don't even itemize it. They don't even see Eversource is replaced with you, right? They probably just pay the bill.
Well,
Complain.
Oh, they complain about the grand
Yes,
total,
yeah.
but I'm saying the
Yeah,
itemized
mine-
one with
so
your
mine-
line name, your name,
After
or
you
the
asked me the
Litchfield
other
name
day
in
how
it.
high my bill was, and
Yeah, so
that was
may,
the month before I
don't
got
think
my
most
bill,
even-
like 3 days later.
no,
Oh,
especially if they're on
it's
auto
high.
debit, right?
The billing is already confusing. I have the Energy Direct, and I attempted to pay them. I use a bill pay service to pay my bills, so I put my account number and Energy Direct in there. Well, that doesn't pay my bill
it does
because you
not.
have to pay EverSource.
You do.
Nobody told me that, so that took a while to straighten out.
Yeah.
You know, so having people there could be confusion. That's just,
What rate did you get direct at?
I don't know, like 13.5 or something for 2 years, which I'm halfway through.
You should call them and ask out.
Yeah.
This is the default service
Well, I
rate.
intend to end it anyway because I'll have my solar roof by then.
But it'll also tell you whether you have a early termination fee or not if you
Yeah.
call.
I'm still not actually clear on whether or not it matters because am I selling it at that rate that I got from them, or am I selling it to EverSource? I don't even know. I haven't figured
It's
this
the
out yet.
EverSource rate.
So it doesn't even matter if I'm on their plan. Because aside of maybe 1 month a year, I'm always gonna produce excess,
Yeah.
unless something goes horribly wrong.
Yep.
We don't have a termination rate, do we? Termination, if we want out, we don't have to pay anything, do we?
Which,
So if we,
Which
if
thing
the
are we
ta-
talking about?
if the
Community
town
power?
wants it,
Yeah.
we opt in, and we want out, is there a termination fee?
no.
Okay, just
In the
that-
community
that
power
just-
plan, no, there is not by law.
Okay,
On the contract the town is under right now, there is an early termination fee.
oh, with you made with the NRPC, okay.
Yep.
Now, do we have to honor that for 2 years? How did we?
Yeah, you have to stay in your
So we're gonna
contract.
keep with them for 2 years, we can't use this service, right? You said you honor
That's correct.
That's
what
correct.
contracts we're in. Okay, well, we still save money there as well, so.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But the town has to. If we adopted community power at town meeting, would the residents have the right to be in the community power?
Oh, of course, if they're not served by somebody else, yes.
So
That's how it works.
So the
the
government-
town buildings
And the
would
school.
still be in this
The
contract,
town
locked into
buildings.
this contract with
Right,
NRPC.
Right.
and if you liked the community power plan better, when that contract ended,
Ends.
if you did nothing, you'd become eligible to join the community power plan,
The town building.
the
Right.
town building.
So it could be, hypothetically, it could be that the residents would be paying a cheaper rate than we are paying
It could be,
at the town.
but you wanna go deep on this point?
But you're sweeping monthly to see that we're out of that, but they usually get that contract in front of us quickly.
Oh, yeah.
You do a month sweep, you said,
yeah.
right, to see when we roll off these things,
But
right?
this
You
is
wanna go deeper
a case where we,
Curious as to
because
where
we're
that would
the
go.
consultant for this contract, so we know the end date of it. So that's a unique case to that conversation. But
Yeah, we had conversations about, was it in the town's best interest to jump onto the NRPC contract again, knowing we are having this conversation, and
Yeah, we've had a lot of those conversations, particularly when, the fact that the rate was 20 cents, doing anything was the right choice.
yeah.
And the school is independent from that NRPC one, right? I don't think they were in it, were
I
they?
don't think the school.
So the school can
the
make their
school,
choice
the
as well.
school is doing something else that we don't know what they do.
Solar.
I think that's the
Middle
path they're
school.
heading towards, yeah.
Yeah. But solar in the middle school is not gonna help the others. So Thursday nights, are going to be pretty much, budget starting September,
Yeah.
October.
Yep.
Um, Mondays are pretty much Board of Selectmen or CIP. I would say Wednesday nights, I'm not sure how that works,
Site here,
with your
ISO
schedule,
to go.
but,
So we did for the town of Allenstown, we met at noon.
See on the grid right now.
So I don't know if that's doable for everyone, but if it is,
Resource mix.
it's
ISO.
probably not a bit, that's probably not difficult for
Like
us.
ISO space
but-
two,
But
it'd
again,
be
that's,
difficult for
two
Eric
space, go space.
and Sam.
So this is
Work.
Yeah.
no relative.
which is
And
totally
the third
fair.
the third gentleman, that it, I would imagine works as well, but
Primarily made of natural gas.
Karen and I,
No, that's totally fair. I figured I would mention it, but
Check that out, thanks.
So what day are you looking at? Wednesdays, you believe? That's school board, so we do have a school rep here.
yes, and now I'm looking,
What's
we
these
put
Tuesdays are open?
economic development there.
What about,
So-
what's the 29th of August? Not that we want to meet again, although I don't mind. What's the last Tuesday of the month?
29th is economic.
It's the day before my
So
vacation, I'll be
recreation.
here.
Recreation
Why do I
looks like they're
have
there.
Economic development on the 20,
My
Oh, it's on the
anniversary, so
30th.
I won't be here.
yeah, I don't see,
Thursdays look good, yeah? 1, 2, third Thursday?
No.
What's the third Thursday in the month?
third Thursday, budget committee,
I don't see 'em.
24th?
I'm looking at different Thursdays. November 16th and 17th are open. 19th and 20th are open. In October. Look at October 19th, 20th.
Oh, you're in October.
I'm just trying to
We
see a
wanna-
pattern of when
Okay.
months are available.
I mean, yeah, if I look at September 21st, I don't see, we could go September 21st. I don't see anything. That's a Thursday,
Check my-
if Thursdays
check my
are good.
personal calendar. I finally get a job with a happy hour. No, just,
You don't think
Just
budget will be meeting?
They're the next one, the
Oh,
28th.
see what my calendar
So
says.
apparently they're skipping.
Oh,
Well, we still have to check with the other
Yeah.
people's calendars as well, but.
So why don't I, put out, an email tomorrow to the whole committee on September 21st, and then I'll confirm with, IT that my calendar that I'm looking at is correct. And we can get back to, Ryan and Bob.
something that I would suggest and we can provide to you is the survey, and if there are questions specific to the town's goals in general that you want to add, we can do that.
Okay.
So getting a little feedback on that survey and then possibly getting that put out before that next meeting might be a good first step.
Yep.
And
That's
then,
great.
and then that next meeting, we can review potential survey results and go through, what the next steps are.
Yeah. That sounds good. I think we need to have the others here to really hear what other objectives the town might have and how we feel the pulse for those. So we can definitely push out information.
Okay.
To the committee so that they can look at it and we can hit the ground running at the
Okay,
meeting.
sounds good.
It was taped, so I will push out the link to this meeting tomorrow so that they can hear the excellent questions that were asked.
Yeah, and if there's any follow-up questions, just send them along, we'll answer, we'll get
Okay.
everybody every answer they want.
Sounds great.
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you
See
very
all.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your time.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
All right, are you an engineer or what?
No,
No?
no,
It sounds like it.
I probably should have been, but I'm
Maybe,
not.
yeah.
No,
Kim, do you wanna close?
Oh, I should close. Hold
Yeah.
on.
I understand
Well, we've
the
already
mentality.
went
I
over the two
guess.
items that were left, but let's,
Any follow-up questions, anything you wanna participate in?
I'm sure there will be
Can't
something
even,
I'm
have
definitely
a roll call for
interested in
adjournment.
approaching
I'll just
legislators
I'll
about
just
this. I've been
adjourn.
meaning to.
Yeah.
the two items we can't do tonight.
That's my concern.
Public comment, nobody was here, and future meeting schedule.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just wait for adjournment.
Well, ideally, the power
We are
won't
good.
go out, and I'll just dip slightly negative for a while.
Can you hold on one
But,
second?
Yeah.
I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Are you okay?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
All right, all right. We're adjourning the meeting. Thank you very much
Have a
for
nice
joining.
night.
Anyway.
No, keep talking
Thank
now
you,
that we're
Oscar.
adjourned.